Hello and welcome back to our channel. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for your trust. Everything I create is based only on personal speculation and personal sharing. Could the Nicole Carlton Kial love triangle push conflict into a point of collision where the emotions and consequences erupt with even greater force? This confrontation does not begin with hatred. It begins with emotions that have been suppressed for so long they can no longer breathe. There are moments that seem like harmless coincidence, yet they are powerful enough to rip apart every layer of politeness people wear to hide jealousy, wounded pride, and the desire to win. And for Nicole Carlton and Kial, it explodes in the most painful way possible, not in secret, not behind closed doors, but right in the middle of a moment where no one has any path left to retreat. When every glance, every wound, every unspoken word crash together so violently that one wrong step forward is enough to destroy everything. Nicole never wanted to become the center of a battle like this. What exhausts her is not simply the fact that two men are drawn to her, but the growing realization that neither of them truly sees her anymore. At some point, feelings that were once genuine became covered by ego, pride, and fear of losing. Nicole realized that early on, but she still tried to believe everything could remain within the boundaries of civility. She wanted time to understand her own heart, wanted to step back far enough to tell the difference between attraction and safety, between the man who made her feel loved and the man who made her feel protected. But that hesitation, that necessary silence, became the very space Carlton and Kial filled with endless assumptions. The less clear Nicole's answer was, the more each of them convinced himself that he needed to do something to secure his place. From that point on, love slowly lost its purest form and turned into a struggle neither of them was willing to call by its real name. Carlton is the first to feel wounded because his pride is threatened. He once believed he understood Nicole more deeply than anyone else, that the years behind them, the bond they had built, the things he had quietly done for her were enough to prove he was the one who suited her best. In Carlton's mind, Kial feels like an infuriating intrusion. Someone who appeared at the exact moment Nicole was at her most vulnerable and gradually stepped into the emptiness Carlton believed he should have been the one to fill. That is why every time he sees Nicole distracted by Kial, every time he realizes she no longer responds to him the way she used to, Carlton does not just feel jealous, he feels insulted. He feels as if everything he patiently built is being denied. What makes Carlton dangerous is not the anger on the surface, but the way he convinces himself that anger comes from love. He does not want to admit that beneath his desire to keep Nicole close lies something darker. He cannot bear the thought of losing, especially to Kial. Kial is different. His sharpness does not show itself through excessive control, but through a kind of confidence that draws people in even while challenging them. He understands that Nicole is hurting, understands that she needs space, but he also believes that stepping back completely would mean allowing Carlton to reclaim the right to define the story. In Kial's eyes, Carlton does not love Nicole in a way that frees her, but in a way that keeps her inside a safe zone of his own making. That belief leads Kial to think he is doing the right thing, that continuing to stay present, continuing to confront, continuing to refuse to yield is a way of protecting Nicole from a possessiveness disguised as care. But Kial fails to see one cruel truth. The more he tries to prove he is different from Carlton by confronting Carlton, the more he becomes like him. That is the trap of ego. People enter a battle to prove they are better, and in the end they lose the very quality that once made them different. The encounter happens at a moment no one prepared for, and that is exactly why it becomes so dangerous. Nicole has just come out of a day drained by pressure, her mind heavy and her emotions tangled, when she suddenly sees both Carlton and Kial there at the same time. One arrives determined to have a serious conversation, while the other comes with no intention of giving his rival any chance to gain an advantage. The instant their eyes meet, the atmosphere changes. It is no longer the awkwardness of adults trying to preserve dignity, but the cold, razor-edge tension of two men who have waited too long to finally say everything they think about each other. At first, it is only a few barbed remarks, still polite enough for outsiders to pretend nothing serious is happening. But the truth is that every word has been building for a long time through interruptions, ruined moments. And all those times Nicole looked exhausted while neither man could bring himself to step aside. Carlton strikes first at his rival's wound by implying that Kial chose the exact moment Nicole was emotionally weak to enter her life, as though his presence had not come from genuine feeling but from opportunism. It is a moral-looking attack, but beneath it lies bitterness over no longer being the only one allowed near Nicole. Kial immediately retaliates with a coldness that cuts even deeper. He does not need to raise his voice. He only needs to expose the core of the problem. At least he does not treat Nicole like a symbol of victory meant to soothe a bruised ego. That is the blow that makes Carlton lose control, because it not only discredits his feelings for Nicole but strikes directly at the most fragile place in his masculine pride. From that moment on, the argument stops being an argument. It becomes a public unveiling of the ugliest parts of themselves that both men had tried so hard to hide. Nicole stands between them, but for the first time she does not feel as though she is standing in the middle of love. She feels trapped between two fires of male pride, two different versions of the same stubbornness. The more she listens, the more exhausted she becomes. Their words grow harsher and harsher. But what hurts her most is that both men use her name to attack the other while neither of them truly asks what she is feeling. Carlton drags up all the times Kial inserted himself at the wrong moment, implying that Kial thrives on intensity and constantly tries to create an advantage through dramatic presence. Kial refuses to back down and points to the moments Carlton acted as if he had a default claim on Nicole's life, as if history, closeness, and suffering somehow entitled him to the final word. Every exchange strips away another layer of illusion, not only their illusions about each other, but Nicole's illusion about both of them. The most tragic part is that the longer it goes on, the less they speak about love and the more they speak about themselves. Who has spent more time beside Nicole? Who understands her more deeply? Who deserves her more? Who is more dishonest? Who deserves to be pushed out of her life? The entire conflict is dragged away from its true center. Nicole is no longer a person with her own pain, choices, fears, and needs. She becomes a mirror each man looks into so he can confirm his own worth. That feeling turns Nicole colder by the second. She does not cry, beg, or break down. It is precisely the disappointment so deep that it leaves no energy for anger that makes her frightening. When a woman realizes she is not being heard in the very story that revolves around her, that is the moment her heart begins to close. The physical clash happens almost by instinct, but its aftershock is enough to ruin everything. Carlton steps too close, not exactly to attack, but clearly to dominate. Kial does not move back. Both men are driven by the same resolve that this time neither of them can afford to give up another inch. One shoulder hits harder than it should. One irritated swat of the hand follows. One shove too small to be a full fight but more than enough to turn tension into reality. In that instant, the air freezes, not because anyone is injured, but because everything has finally crossed the last boundary of decency. For Nicole, that shove does not show who is stronger. It shows her the ugliest truth of all. When pushed to their limit, both of these men are willing to let ego overpower the very thing they keep calling love. But what truly leaves Carlton and Kial stunned is not the physical contact. It is Nicole's reaction afterward. She does not rush to hold either of them back, does not panic, does not take anyone's side, does not soften toward either one. She simply steps back, and that single step backward hurts more than every accusation spoken before it. There is no more confusion in her eyes now, only a cold and devastating disillusionment. She looks at them as if she is seeing them clearly for the first time, and that look makes both men understand that they have just lost something more valuable than any temporary advantage. Nicole never has to say the question out loud for it to cut straight through both of them. Are they really fighting for her, or are they fighting for their own pride? The silence that follows is the heaviest silence of all. Because for the first time, neither Carlton nor Kial can lie to himself and say this is still only about love. Nicole leaves without choosing either one of them, and that becomes both the most reasonable and the most brutal decision she could make. She does not want to remain a prize for whoever wins a battle that has become too exhausting to bear. She does not want her feelings to be forced into existence just to soothe a man's bruised ego. And she does not want her need for safety to become a reason for someone else to impose ownership over her life. What Nicole needs now is not a beautiful promise or an impressive display of devotion. She needs space to recover from the suffocating feeling of being cornered. She needs to see who truly understands where she is hurting, who is mature enough to stop, who understands that loving someone does not mean surrounding that person with pressure and constant presence. For Carlton, the greatest shock is not that Nicole walks away, but that he realizes he has become exactly the kind of man he always believed he was not. He had convinced himself he was fighting for love, for sincerity, for the chance not to lose someone important. But when everything settles, every detail of the confrontation returns to torment him. He remembers stepping too close. He remembers Nicole's eyes changing the moment Kial struck the nerve of his wounded pride. He remembers reacting not out of heartbreak, but out of humiliation. That is the most unbearable truth. Carlton may still love Nicole, but he can no longer say with certainty that his intensity was entirely for her. Part of him simply could not endure the thought of losing to Kial, and when he realizes that, Carlton begins to sink into a quiet shame even more painful than anger. Kial does not escape the aftermath either. He has always believed that he is the one who sees the truth more clearly, the one brave enough to say what others hide, the one who does not cover emotion with polite masks. But that same confidence becomes the thing that traps him in his own hypocrisy. He condemns Carlton for turning Nicole into a symbol of victory, but in the end he stood there too, confronting him to the bitter end, refusing to step back in front of her. Kial understands that Nicole's reaction is not just disappointment in Carlton, it is disappointment in him as well. That realization fills his regret with a different kind of pain, quieter, deeper, and more unsettling because it touches the good image he always carried of himself. If he is truly different from Carlton, why did he choose confrontation instead of listening when pushed to the edge? If he truly wanted to protect Nicole, why was the thing he defended in the end his position against another man? After the confrontation, the most frightening thing is not who won or who lost, but the emptiness Nicole leaves behind. By choosing neither of them, she takes away the most comforting illusion they both had, the belief that if they only tried a little harder, they would eventually be rewarded. Now everything is forced back to its true nature. Carlton must face whether he is humble enough to apologize to Nicole without turning that apology into a strategy to restore his image. Kial must face whether he is patient enough to step back without turning that waiting into another form of pressure. And Nicole, in the middle of all that wreckage, must begin asking herself an even harder question. Does her heart still truly want to open itself to either one of them? Or has this confrontation made her realize she is far more exhausted than she ever admitted? What makes this story gripping is not the question of whom Nicole will choose next. It is the fact that for the first time, all three of them have been pushed into a corner by their own truth. Nicole must learn not to be softened by passionate gestures when possession hides behind them. Carlton must learn that love cannot exist beside the need to win. Kial must learn that seeing the flaws in his rival does not make him immune to those same flaws. No one can hide behind beautiful excuses anymore. No one can pretend to be innocent in this chaos. And that is what makes everything more dangerous than ever. Because after one small shove, the thing truly broken is not the atmosphere, but the illusion. Nicole has seen the real face of this exhausting competition. Carlton has seen the possessiveness inside his own love. Kial has seen the same hunger to win that he always insisted belonged only to the other man. From here on, every action will matter. The first person to apologize may not be the one who understands most deeply. The one who goes silent may not be the one who has let go. The one who waits may not be the one who is truly mature. And if Nicole continues to reject them both, then perhaps the true loser will not be the man who failed to have her, but the man who lost his dignity while trying to claim her. Because in the end, the man Nicole needs was never the winner of a confrontation. The man she needs is the one who knows when to stop, who knows how to step back when the woman he loves can barely breathe, who understands that love is not a trophy to be lifted in front of a rival. But painfully, after everything that has just happened, what Nicole sees most clearly now is not who loves her more. It is that neither of them is calm enough to love her in the way she actually needs. And sometimes, the strongest choice a woman can make is not to walk toward one man, but to turn away from both and protect the last piece of peace she still has left.